Hello fellow web dev students. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about advanced topics in Sass. And I've got a lot to go over, so I'm going to hop right in. You should have been able to watch a previous video that Derek Hasvold made about Sass, kind of introduction to Sass, what it is, using Sass on Windows or with a compiler, variables nesting math, all that good stuff. I highly recommend that if you haven't watched that video yet, stop this video, go watch it, and then come back and watch this one. So, this video, however, is going to talk about using Sass on a Mac and installing it via the command line and using it via the command line. It's going to talk about, briefly, tools for testing Sass, and you'll see some tools that we're going to use here. It's going to talk about, specifically, string interpolation, mix-ins, and several really cool directives that Sass gives us. So, to jump right in, I want to make an important note here. I am not saying that these commands that you will see in the command line do work on Windows, but I'm also saying that they might not. I'm using a Mac, and so if you are watching this on a Windows machine and you want to install and use Sass via the command line, it might not work the way that I'm doing it here because I am, in fact, using a Mac. So, to install Sass on a Mac, there's a Ruby out there that you can install, or a gem rather, that you can install through Ruby. It's very easy. You just copy this in your command line, gem install Sass, paste that right in, and you'll see it import. Now, because I already have Sass, what you can do to check to see if you do is you can just say Sass -- version, and you can see I do in fact have Sass installed. So, you can also install via an application, which you'll see online somewhere, but really what that means is you're using a compiler. And check out that previous video from Derek to see how to in fact use a compiler on your machine to use Sass. So, using Sass, this is kind of where we make Sass work for us in the command line. To do so, you tell Sass to watch specific SCSS files, and it will automatically compile them to CSS files anytime that you make changes. You can, in fact, just have a one-off compile of Sass, but in my opinion, this is the best way to do it because you can work on these files. It will continually listen. Anytime you save that file, it will rewrite the CSS file. The syntax for using that is the Sass -- watch, and then here you have the input file or directory, and then the output file directory separated by a colon. Now, I said you could watch CSS files. You can, in fact, list a file specifically and an output file specifically, but when you're working on a large project, it's much easier to have it watch an entire directory and output to an entire directory. So let's go ahead and start up Sass and have it watch the project that we're going to be using in this demo here. So I'm going to say Sass -- watch. I'm currently in my project folder, so just to show you what I have here, we'll open up Atom, and you can see I have a CSS folder and a Sass folder. So I want to watch Sass and output to CSS. So I'm going to say Sass : CSS, and it is now running. You can stop that with Control-C. So we're going to be using Sassmeister to test our Sass. This is a great website. Derek might have showed this to you in the last video. I'm not quite sure. If he didn't, this is an awesome place where you can type in Sass, see what CSS will be compiled. There is also an interactive command line shell for people like Dr. Little, I'm assuming, who really love the command line over the graphical interface. You just get into that by Sass -I. So, let's hop into the first topic for today's video, and that is string interpolation. Now, string interpolation is an interesting topic in and of itself. If you've ever written Python or Swift, you probably have used string interpolation. If you haven't, then you're not writing Python or Swift right. It is, in my opinion, a great thing that a language can offer. Instead of having to use the string plus another string or string plus another value plus another string, you can just simply inject a value of a variable or whatever it is directly into a string. And you could do that in Sass via this syntax, the #, curly brace, whatever value, close curly brace when you are inside a string. This is especially useful in control flow directives, as you'll see a little bit later on in the video, but don't take my word for it. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like in Sassmeister. So, here I'll paste it in. It'll compile it to CSS. We have I8 and then a Sass script value in here, 5 + 10, pies, which compiles to I ate 15 pies. You can also use this with variables. So let's go ahead and copy this. I've got some code written over here, and that's what we have here. Now this is an interesting thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. Here we have a variable declared in Sass with a value of null, and we're using this variable in the string I ate whatever this is pies. Now notice all this has happened is that it has essentially printed a blank space here, and that is how Sass handles those null values. If I were to change this to 15, you could then see that it changes to 15. If I change this to, I don't know, animal, I ate animal pies. This can be numbers, strings, whatever it is you'd like to use. And that is string interpolation. Yet again, this is very useful in the control flow directives, which you shall be seeing a little bit later. Mix-ins. I could spend about 30 minutes on mix-ins, and in fact, this is the second time that I've filmed this video, and the first time I spent way too much time on mix-ins. So I'm going to pare it down. I'm going to be very, very brief. A mix-in essentially is a piece of code that you can use and reuse those styles multiple places in your style sheet. It's declared using @mixin, and then the name of the mixin with any parameters you want to pass in, and then whatever your style is. And then you use it by saying @include, and then the mixin name, passing it any parameters that you need to. An easy example of this is dealing with vendor prefixes. Now, if you've written styles very much, you probably have run into those pesky vendor prefixes, and they're really a pain to write. Here we've created a mixin called border radius, which takes a parameter radius, and it then creates the style for all of the vendor prefixes for border radius using that value. So here in my selector for box, I'm including this mixin, and I'm passing it the value of 10 pixels, which then compiles to having this style for all of the border radius vendor prefixes with a value of 10 pixels. Now this, just this alone, this can save you quite a bit of time. You can end up using mix-ins for a number of different things as well. If you have a main font family you need to use, or a main style for certain text on your site, and you could create a mix-in for it and use that in many different places. That's all I'll say about mix-ins right now, but hit up the Sass docs to see a couple of other really cool things you can do with mix-ins. Now, talking about mix-ins, you probably have seen, the @mixin, @include, a couple of other directives. Sass takes those directives and cranks them up a notch. Now, this is not the Angular JS directives that we've been learning about in our IS 542 class. These are known as @rules. Like I mentioned before, you've just seen a Sass directive in mix-ins. You'll also start seeing a couple more here and there as we go, but I really want to dive a little deeper into two specifically. The first one is @import. Now, the @import really is reason enough to use Sass if you're not using it. In my opinion, this is a great way to keep your code super clean and to have very modular CSS, and to make it really just incredibly efficient to change the overall style of your site without having to go and track down a bunch of different style sheets and change things a bunch of different places. Someone might watch this video and say, well, John, there actually is a reason not to use it because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that might be the case. In my opinion, I don't think there's a reason not to use it. It just takes a little bit of setup, in the beginning. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and add this import to our project. Now, a little note, if you're watching this video and looking to copy and paste code here, I actually messed up just a little bit on this declaration here. You do need a double quote on this side, double quote on this side, and a semicolon at the end at the top of your file when you're using an import statement. You'll see this in the example. Just wanted to make that little public service announcement. So let's go ahead and add this into our project here. I'm going to open up Atom, and actually I have already done that here, so I'm going to go ahead and revert this to the way that it was, and we're going to go ahead and save this file. So here we have our variables at the very top of this file. Now this is how the file should have been left when Derek ended his video last, and this is the file that is rendered in the browser when you're looking at this. It's just a simple template. This should be exactly how Derek left it in the last video. So what we're going to do here is create a variables file, and we're going to import that into our styles so that we can access those variables from multiple different places. So what I'm going to do here is take those variables out, and I'm going to paste them into this variables.scss file, which I already have done here. Now you'll notice that this file actually has underscore variables.scss to begin with. That is because if you scroll over here, you'll notice, let me go ahead and just delete this here just to show you. I'm going to delete this and save it, which Sass should pick up. It noticed this change here, however it did not write a new CSS file based on this, and that is the naming convention at play. If you begin an SCSS file with an underscore, your Sass compiler will say, hey, you know what, this means that this person does not want a CSS file. This is strictly for SCSS. It is known as a partial. It's going to be used in other different places and it does not need to be compiled into CSS. So let's go ahead and paste those values into here. We'll save that. And instead of those values here, we're going to say @import variables. Now, you're going to say, John, how come you're not including the path, or rather the file extension or the underscore or anything like that? And that is because the Sass compiler is smart enough to know, hey, I'm going to ignore that underscore, I'm going to search for the variables or underscore variables file, and if it's an SCSS file, you do not need the file type. So we'll save that. We're going to swing over to the terminal here, double check that there's no errors. This is where you'll see if there are any compile errors in your Sass code. No compile errors. We're going to go ahead and refresh that page, and our goal is that it looks exactly the same, and it does. All right, so that is import. Yet again, super useful. Thinking outside of the box, you could even have a underscore colors file with all the variables for your colors. You could have an underscore dimensions file, and then in your variables file, you could import those files and have a single variables import in your other sheets, which yet again, like I said, super efficient way to change the overall styles of your app, changing it in a single place. Finally, we're going to talk about @extend. The @extend is super simple to use, and it's very efficient. I'm not going to dive deep into this when it comes to the project because really @extend can be kind of interchangeable with mixins. The easy way to show this, and I guess I will go ahead and show it here, is notice that we have a font family here that we're using in our paragraph tag. We're also duplicating that effort right here in A. So rather than typing it out there, I'm going to say @extend P. All this does then is it looks to our P tag as a superclass and then creates A and its styles as if it was inheriting from this superclass. So yet again, we're going to save this. We're going to swing over here and we're going to hopefully see that these links here do not change in style. So let's go ahead and see. And yet again, same font class because it is inheriting from there. Yet again, very similar to mix-ins. You can use them, in my opinion, interchangeably. I might be wrong on that, so don't hold me to that. Now, I'm running out of time here. This video's got to be under 15 minutes, so I'm just going to give you a quick demo of these control flow directives in your code, if, for, and each. They really kind of give you the almost programming language feel to your CSS. To see those, let's go ahead and hop back into Sassmeister. I'm going to show you a couple of different things that I've written up here. So what we're going to see here is at first if. If is now almost kind of providing a switch on the value of type. If it is a certain value, it is then going to print out or compile a certain style. Really cool, really useful. Depending on your application. For can be seen this way. @for, the variable you're going to use, give it a range, and then you can print out whatever styles within those curly braces. Here, it creates 3 classes with only having to declare a single class. Yet again, super useful. Now, in my opinion, one of the most useful is @each. So, @each operates similarly to for, only you pass in a list of items. You can using string interpolation, inject it into the class selector here, creating multiple selectors, and even into the background URL, so that you can save time writing less code. That was a whirlwind overview, but check out the Sass documentation. They've got plenty of stuff there, way more than I had time to go over, and I hope that this video helped you guys out. Have a great day.